So you want to be careful how you define who you'll take on as a client and who you won't. So, and this is a process that we decided a long time ago between Steve and I, my son Steve, and I, that we were interviewing for attributes. We don't want to see your statement when you first come in the door. If you bring it with you and you want to show us after we're done our conversation, then we'll have deserved that in the conversation. But the idea is that I think we can spend, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour with almost anybody that walks in through the door and add value whether they become a client or not. So then the amount of money that they've got to bring to us is less relevant. And what happens is we'll get into a conversation where, perhaps it's a 65-year-old who's retiring and they don't have nearly enough money. They're going to run out of money. Well, you help them with a plan, but then you kind of explain to them that we can't really add much value on $100,000. That in some cases they might be better not to transfer into you, pay those fees, because at the end of the day, we can't do much more than what they're doing in that conversation with them right there. And they walk away feeling, okay, well, he helped me out a little bit. And the next thing you know, we've had some great referrals from clients we've declined.
Welcome to the Future Ready Advisor podcast. I'm your host, Sam Sivarajan, wealth management consultant and behavioral scientist. Join me and my guests, from industry experts to top advisors, as we explore the pain points that financial advisors face, how they can solve them, free up their time, and make their practice future ready. Hi, everyone. I'm Sam Sivarajan. Welcome to today's episode of the Future Ready Advisor. Today, I'm here with Dan Allen, a senior financial advisor with Manulife Securities based in Fergus, Ontario. Dan specializes in retirement income and protection and is here to talk about building a successful practice by knowing your values and choosing and retaining the right clients. Dan, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Sam.
Great to have you. So let me just introduce you to our audience. For over 25 years, Dan Allen has helped professionals, business owners, and retirees make the most out of their financial resources. Dan's specialty is helping people create wealth, sustainable retirement income, and an estate for the causes and people closest to them. Dan's financial approach is a proven, consistent process that helps clients make the most of their financial resources. The goal is to help clients achieve what's most important to them, whatever they may be. Dan, I'm looking forward to our conversation today. So I'd love it if you can start with sharing just a little bit about your practice and how it has evolved over the years.
Well, first of all, I should acknowledge this is a second career for me. I started out with CIBC in 1978, if you can imagine, and spent 25 years there. Took a lot of the learnings that I took from there and brought it forward into our own practice. And some of those things, I was in a leadership position for most of my time at CIBC. And one of the things that seemed the easiest to get people in a sales management kind of world is to get them to use their expertise, but ask enough questions with clients to understand their position. And so you can add value to that client in every conversation. And so that took a lot of pressure off the sales management side, and that worked very well for me there. And then when I got into this business, I had to up my game. Like I had to find a new way of understanding the client and what was important to them and that sort of thing. So I relied on Bill Bacharach's values-based selling, and I studied a lot about what Nick Murray had to say about the markets and some of the scripting that he provides as well. So I had to take that, and so I fine-tuned my process, and I added some credentials. CFP was the first thing. Master Financial Advisor in Retirement Income was another, and I took the Elder Planning Counselor course because I didn't really understand. At 45, I didn't really understand older people the way I felt I should, and so now I understand completely how older people think. But anyway, so I really kind of fine-tuned things, and that was after that first 5 years in the business where you take every person that will fog a mirror as a client. And then you specialize, you try and find a way to specialize in it. And that's where I went with it. And so far it's pretty successful. We're up to 4 people on the team now. My son joined me 9 years ago. He's got a CFP. He's, of course, a succession plan here. Our office in Fergus has grown quite a bit, and we're a pretty proud member of the community here in Fergus. So.
Congratulations. That sounds like quite the journey. And I think that there's a couple of things that you said that resonated, that building credentials and expertise, particularly as the needs of your clients evolve. And I think the EPC is a great example, et cetera. I'm seeing it more and more in the industry. Because as you say, like a lot of the clientele are getting older, and the needs and the requirements of that client base is something that I think that having that kind of skill set or the EPC training can help on that.
Well, it certainly helps you understand where they're coming from when you get into conversations, whether it's talking about their grandkids or whether it's talking about illnesses that kind of creep up on them, and you get a new appreciation for. It's not all about the return. It is about preservation of capital for a lot of those folks. For some of them, it's about how stuff is taxed. It's about how you keep within the OAS, clawback lines. So it was very important to me to get that fairly intense week of training, and also in that EPC world. I was sitting there with funeral directors and accountants and people and long-term care facility managers. And so the chance to talk to them about how they interact with their clients, so to speak, was important as well. So I use all of those things in discussions now when I talk to my clients. It's a very valuable part of it. I mean, CFP is to me it used to separate you as an advisor. Mm-hmm. I don't think it does anymore. I think that's the basic that you have to have as a financial advisor. Some level of accreditation on that level. But if you want to specialize in something, you've got to add some knowledge, or you're really just, they're going to be able to get that information from artificial intelligence some way down the road.
No, I totally agree. And I think to your point, the things like a CFP, they're important. I think they are table stakes, but I also think they're the technical skills. And I think to your point, having things like an EPC, it helps you relate to the human behind the portfolio or the insurance policy, et cetera, to be able to understand. I think most of us are wired to think about returns, to think about fees, et cetera, and without remembering that all of those returns and fees are in the service of something or some objective or some goal or some value or some person. And I think having this kind of training, as you talk about like EPC or things, helps you kind of frame the conversation in ways that will help that client actually surface some of these values and priorities and interests that they may not have thought about or verbalized to themselves, right?
Well, and it helps you as the expert in the room in the financial services connect their values with your product. I'm not going to say we don't do this for money. I mean, there's an element that you do this, but the level of service you can provide to a client by helping them with making the appropriate choices and that fit their values. What I find as an advisor running my own business is suddenly you've got clients for life. They remember what you did for them 15 years ago based on the depth of conversation that you had with them at that time.
That's a great point. So, Dan, we've had several conversations over the years about the importance of choosing your clients, that there must be a fit over and above minimums and so on. In fact, you've said that your approach in this respect is a competitive advantage for you. Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So we live in non-urban area. I mean, people from other smaller towns would think this is a big urban area, but there's about 20,000 people in Fergus. And I would say we service Wellington County, part of Waterloo region, that sort of thing, but pretty much within 50 miles of here. And so you want to be careful how you define who you'll take on as a client and who you won't, because you don't know who they know, who they're related to, and that sort of thing. So, and this is a process that we decided a long time ago between Steve and I, my son Steve and I, that we were interviewing for attributes. We don't want to see your statement when you first come in the door. If you bring it with you and you want to show us after we're done our conversation, then we'll have deserved that in the conversation. But the idea is that I think we can spend half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour with almost anybody that walks in through the door and add value whether they become a client or not. So then the amount of money that they've got to bring to us is less relevant. And what happens is we'll get into a conversation where, perhaps it's a 65-year-old who's retiring and they don't have nearly enough money. They're going to run out of money. Well, you help them with a plan, but then you kind of explain to them that we can't really add much value on $100,000. That in some cases they might be better not to transfer into you, pay those fees, because at the end of the day, we can't do much more than what they're doing in that conversation with them right there. And they walk away feeling, okay, well, he helped me out a little bit. And the next thing you know, we've had some great referrals from clients we've declined. And it's because of who they've known and how we've treated them and the like. So I won't say that it's not a lot of work. I mean, you end up putting a lot of work into it, but at the end of the day, you end up with the clients that you can help. You've helped the clients that you there's limited help that you can give them, and you have no problems meeting anybody on the main street of Fergus. Like you don't shy away from the folks that maybe didn't work out as clients, because you help them some other way. So we've taken that approach, and it's worked out well for us. And I'll tell you the other thing that it's also worked out for us is when you're interviewing for attributes, you define whether they're a saver and a spender, more or less. It does not, if you can find that 35-year-old out there who's a great saver, who they don't have a lot of money come in, but you find a way to bring them in as a client, and you can help them out, and then you help them with their kids' RESPs, and you help them out with their retirement plan. The next thing you know, there's been a job change, and you're bringing in their group plan from work or their pension or whatever. Suddenly in 10 years, you've got a pretty good client. And again, you've treated them well enough that they'll be with you for life. So it's a little bit like, I can't remember, is it Domino's or Caesars that figures out how many pizzas somebody buys in their lifetime? And so you're not selling them one pizza, you're selling a lifetime of pizzas. And so we're trying to look at who we can sell a lifetime of pizzas to without overcommitting, I guess, to clients who we can't help that much.
I mean, that's a great perspective to take. In the software industry, they always talk about the lifetime value of a client. So if they're paying monthly subscription fees, you don't think of it as what are they paying next month. You think, how long are they likely to be with you? And if they're paying those monthly fees, how much is that worth to you? And I think that's a great discipline for anybody in the service business to think about, is if you're thinking about this as a 5-year or 10-year or 15-year relationship, how much is that worth to you? And how does that inform your approach and your interaction and the level of service that you provide, right? It's a very good discipline that you're bringing to the table.
Right. And it allows us to have referrals from parents and grandparents that, in some respects, other advisors might turn away just because they're not big enough. Well, if you want that wealth to tumble down the scale, then that's what's going to happen then. So,
you made a really interesting comment about interviewing for attributes that I quite liked. Can you dive a little bit deeper into that? Like, what type of attributes are you looking for or testing for, et cetera? I mean, presumably, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but presumably one of those is how willing are they to delegate, how much control they need to have in decision making, et cetera. But can you expand on some of the attributes that you might be looking for?
Yeah, I mean, there's a bit of a sense of priority. And again, this is where Bill Bacharach's book comes into play. And I think you've talked to it too, about values-based selling, where, if you can understand that somebody is going to prioritize saving for their child's education versus having to have a new car every year, I mean, that to me is a value that we would want to have as a client. If you have people that have to be in the nicest house in the neighborhood and stretches their income to do it, well, I'm not sure we can help those clients as far as a long-term wealth creation or a retirement plan necessarily on that sort of thing. So what we're looking for is signs where people kind of have the same values of saving, of taking care of their family, of sacrificing a little bit over here to make sure that their plan works over there. Evidence of that when you get into a conversation. And in some cases, that means they've already saved. A young couple that's already saved $35,000 or $40,000. It's not much to get things started, but if they put a savings plan with it, that'll build over time and be quite fine. So, and again, you never know who they end up referring to you because you've taken good care of them too. Almost everybody gets a financial plan out of this, Sam. Some of it's very basic. Some of it is just figuring out how much you have to save every month and reducing your expenses to help people save there. But that's the sort of thing that becomes part of the interview is that gathering of information. So.
Yep, I think that's absolutely right. I think you're looking to see whether you're in a position to help them, and part of that involves, okay, are they open to advice? Are they open to being getting recommendations, etc., or have they already set sail in a particular direction that maybe is not consistent with your business and what you can deliver and help? So why bring yourself into a situation where you're not adding value and they're not happy?
Right. Because you'll never get a referral out of that. I mean, if you're looking at creating a level of service that constantly gets referrals, you also have to have the kind of client that you can help to that level. And so, I mean, it used to be that you could drop. We deal a lot locally, so in a lot of cases we can drop by people's houses for signatures rather than young couples having to get babysitters or an elderly person who's given up their driver's license, that sort of thing. So when you're able to do this extra stuff, you kind of plan for it. You kind of look for it in an interview. What extra could I do for this person that would add value and make life simpler for them? And some of it is in the portfolios we build. I mean, we've had new clients come in that they want to watch their portfolio every month, and then we explain to them, the kind of portfolios we put together, you're going to be pretty bored. I mean, this is not going to be exciting stuff that you're going to see. So some of it is training, some of it is creating expectations of the level of service or client contact is one thing, but some of the other stuff is not going to be not terribly exciting. So
no, I think that's such an important point that you just put out there, and that is managing their expectations. So this is open and upfront communications to sit there and say, what exactly can they expect from your portfolio? What exactly they can expect from communication, etc. Certainly in my experience, I think that having those kind of discussions early on, I think helps get everybody on the same page and leads to better and more fruitful relationships over the longer term.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Dan, where do you see the challenges and opportunities for financial advisors in the coming years? I mean, you've talked about your son, Steve, joining the practice, and that's your succession plan. How are you, both of you, planning and preparing for this future?
Well, I think, there's a couple of challenges out there. When I started up, I didn't buy a book of business. We've never bought a book of business out there. And I'm not saying that it's not the appropriate approach, because in my day, we still had deferred service charges, low load funds that we'd use, sold enough insurance for lump sums and that sort of thing. And I think, insurance sales have become kind of the DSC low load of our day now. You're either in front end or F-class funds, so they're not going to necessarily get a startup going. So I think some of the challenges is buying the right book of business to get going. And then, of course, you're going to have to evolve whatever clientele you've bought into the kind of clientele you want to have. So knowing that that's your foundation, that gives you cash flow, and then moving on. So I do think startups have quite a challenge ahead of them. I think in this business too, you have to be kind of willing to fire clients that don't fit. But if you're going to be in that kind of world, you got to have a good marketing plan, a good prospecting pipeline, so you can keep building your business, because our expenses are not going down. They're just going to keep climbing. So unless you keep building your business is going to die here. So there's some of those things that you have to have a fairly rigorous discipline around. And at the same time, you have to have processes that don't take up your whole day. I mean, you have to have repeatable, efficient processes and support that will help you get through that day. So it's not an easy business. I mean, I think the days of it being an easy business are kind of by the wayside. And we've had discussions like this before, Steve and I, about what you cut out, and you don't want to cut out client contact. Like, you have to do everything that's client contact. That's the value that we bring as advisors. You can't really cut out compliance. You kind of have to make sure that you've got that done. So then the rest of it, you have to be very careful. So there's a lot of challenges in all the demands on time for a financial advisor that make it a tougher business than what it was maybe 20 years ago when I started.
I think that's a good point. I suspect in some ways that it was never an easy business, or any business for that matter is easy. I think the challenges just sort of morph and change in some ways. So perhaps identifying clients and getting in front of them in some ways may be easier right now with the computer, the internet, email, digital marketing, etc. But there are other, as you say, other expectations, whether it's compliance, whether it's changing technology, etc. But I think one thing that you said to me resonates is the idea of creating like a repeatable, scalable process. And I think I've heard this a lot from seasoned advisors, seasoned successful advisors, as part of what's brought them their success, and part of the advice that they would give to, call it, the next generation of advisors, is to invest in creating that scalable, repeatable process. It sounds like a lot of upfront work, and it might be, but if you create it once and you can do this 100 times a week after that, I think it's really going to increase your efficiency and leave the time for you to be able to do the things that aren't negotiable, such as client business development or client servicing or compliance.
Well, and so we're pretty disciplined here about annual reviews, in some cases semi-annual reviews with clients, and rebalancing of portfolios. So with every change that comes out, because suppliers are throwing changes at, dealerships are throwing changes at us, compliance are throwing changes at us. So with all of these, what we end up doing is saying, okay, so how do we fit this into our client meetings? How do we fit this into our client contact program? Because that's the real value. If the real value is in clients and client contact, then we have to fit everything in there that's necessary. So if compliance is necessary, and it is, you can't avoid it. You have to figure out how it fits into your day and how it fits into how you work with clients. And so as much as we're disciplined about our processes, you have to be open-minded about how you can adapt some of these things too. And believe me, over the years, we've had a few that you kind of go, all right, I haven't figured this out yet. I got to sleep on this, or I got to spend a weekend on the golf course to have this rattle through my subconscious or something. And then you come back the next week and go, okay, so if we do this, this will work. And but it is kind of making things adapt to your process, and you adapting to whatever you get put in front of you.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's about being thoughtful about your business and never losing focus of what is important. So to your point, compliance may be important, administrative stuff is important, but to the extent that you can wrap it into a regularly scheduled client meeting or an annual review, you can make this support the client servicing aspect of it as opposed to being an intrusion and extra work for either you or the client to complete.
Well, and sometimes you have to just bite the bullet and take the sacrifice.
One of the things that I think clients need help, and I'd love to hear you talk about it, is how do you help clients beat themselves? I mean, to staying disciplined in tough markets when they might want to do otherwise. You've created a plan, they've agreed to it, and everything is going well. But of course, market suddenly reacts violently to some news that we wouldn't necessarily predict specifically, but knew that these kind of corrections and volatility exist. How do you help the client stay the course and not overreact in these situations?
Well, if you can get ahead of it, I find getting ahead of of issues can be an issue, and or can be a solution. An example was when markets, dramatically dropped in, was that March of 2022 or April of 2020 rather, with COVID. Getting in front of clients, making the phone call to them, and talking about opportunities in the market for the right clients, and then reminding other people that we've got 15% of your portfolio in a cash wedge to service your withdrawals, so you can ride this out. So sometimes it is just reminding them what we're doing in their plan that foresaw this. And as financial advisors, that's probably what we do. If we're really good at our job, that's what we do best. We go, all right, let's create a plan that survives the ups and downs. We've got solutions for everything that goes on here. And I'll tell clients about that. If you come to me for money out of your non-registered, and this is a prize thing, and in there we've got bond funds, in there we've got stock funds, whatever. So the stock market's up, we might take it from the growth off the stock market. Stock market's down, we might take it from the bond side. So don't worry about coming forward and asking me for something, because we've got some solutions. We just have to be able to adapt between things. So a lot of it's communication. A lot of it's kind of setting the table before it happens, just so that clients know we've got solutions for them, no matter what market environment it might be in. As a result, we don't get a lot of phone calls. And again, our portfolios are really dull and boring, and they continually compound. But part of that is because my research says there's not a lot of value in being much more than medium risk. So if we can keep it fairly stable, then we're doing our job. So between that and getting in front of it, that's probably the most helpful parts that we can do with clients. Admittedly, new clients are not used to this. So in some cases, you have to train them differently than what they've had experienced through their previous advisor. But after a couple of years, they're usually fine with things that we tell them in advance of what might be coming.
I think setting the table before the event, that's a great analogy and a great picture. And I think your process in building a financial plan is helpful in that, to kind of showcase to them what the future looks like for them if they continue. But I suspect as part of that conversation, you're also kind of reminding them that markets go up, markets go down, and that the portfolio that you're designing for them, or the financial plan that you've created for them, takes all of those things into account, so that they're in a good position overall to ride out whatever short-term volatility there may be in the markets.
Yeah, I mean, for a lot of our clients, by the time you're 50, you've heard the "stay invested," just hang in there speech often enough. Our different approach to that is it's easy to say stay invested if you got cash. Okay, so in a lot of cases, we're talking to clients about, okay, so what's the backup plan if the markets went down here, and if they've got a backup plan, like they've got a home equity, they've only got $100,000 drawn on a 250 limit or whatever. In some cases, that will be the backup plan. They may have cash in savings accounts, so we'll talk about that. For retirees with their withdrawal plans, we'll have cash in their accounts to do that. So it's really important for us to talk about the what ifs before they happen.
That's great. So we're coming to the end of our episode, Dan. Would love to ask you a few final rapid fire questions that I ask all of our guests. So if you're ready, number one, what is the most important lesson you've learned over the years?
Well, always keep learning. And there's a lot we can learn from history. I'm not saying everything that happens in our history repeats exactly, but you can learn a lot from it. And so I think that's critical. I mean, for anybody that lived through the 80s and 90s, what we're going through with rising interest rates now, history shows you don't beat inflation in 2 years. You beat inflation in 10 years. So hang in there, folks. Those interest rates are going to be around for a while. So you're able to position this with clients along the way, so always learning, always knowing about that. Staying disciplined about client contact has really helped us here, and so that's one thing that I don't think AI can replace. And sometimes we make a big deal about the next big change and things. I remember when discount brokerage came out in the 80s, and I was sitting in the banks and we were going, man, if you can do this yourself, we're all going to lose a job. And now I'm sitting here as an advisor using a form of discount brokerage to build my business. And so we have to be careful we don't get too excited or too negative about that stuff. So there's certain things to learn in history that'll help us from getting too excited about the future and doubts we have about the future.
I agree. I think what you just said reminds me of, I think it was a quote by Mark Twain: history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And I think, to your point, I think that we should look at what's happened in the past. Things are in cycles, and it doesn't repeat itself exactly, but we can learn things from it to better prepare ourselves for the future. So that's a great observation. Number two, Dan, finish this sentence. I wish I had known
the value of my brand. If I had known that I could do this independently, I probably would have left the bank 10 years sooner. And so I also would have changed my perspective in the first 10 years. I probably would have marketed myself, not aggressively, but got my message out there a little bit sooner and all that sort of thing. So for any advisor out there who feels they've got their systems in place and ready to go, make sure the world knows about it, because there's some real opportunities that maybe got missed because I wasn't putting myself out there the way I could have or should have been. So that I think and there's still days I underestimate the value of our brand. I mean, just putting it out there and saying, this is what we do. It's really simple. We put ourselves in the customer's shoes and use all the experience and knowledge we have to do for that client what that client would do if they had our knowledge and stuff. And that's not a difficult message to get value from, but that's an important branding that I think I wish I would have shared.
That's great advice. And that's true for whether you're an independent advisor or working for a larger institution in-house. I think people still want to deal with a person. And I think there's an element of branding yourself appropriately as to what your values, what they can expect, how they will work with you, how you make a difference beyond saying, okay, I'm going to construct portfolios, I'm going to run a financial plan. I think that's the what. I think part of your branding that you're talking about is how you do things and what makes you different, making sure that your clients or your potential clients are aware of that so that they can decide appropriately.
Yeah, and don't take it lightly. You have to keep improving out there. We keep improving the brand by staying just constant learning, I guess, is the biggest thing. It's a brand just like any other brand out there.
I think to your point about continuing to learn and continue to invest in it, you're so right. I have a friend of mine who is a very senior branding professional, and he defines it as the value of promises kept. So your brand is continually refreshed, and it's refreshed based on what you've just recently done for your last client or your last initiative, et cetera. So it isn't something that you create a brand and forget about it. You have to continue to invest in it and what you do and how you do it.
Yeah, but you brought up a good point. if the brand is, I can't remember which football owner said, just deliver, baby. Sometimes it is just deliver, and it distinguishes you at least as a foundational piece with clients and prospects. So keeping promises is a big part of everybody's brand. Yeah.
Totally agree. Number 3, what do you think is the biggest pain point for most advisors, and what advice would you give them?
Well, some would say compliance, but we kind of talked about that and integrated it into your routine, and that's my advice on that side. The other thing, just know who you service well. That's kind of the topic of today, anyway. But know who you service well. Constantly keep learning so you can provide the advice and the knowledge that you've got to service those people well. You'll have lifelong clients. You'll have relationships that you might not get anywhere else, and they'll send you more and more business as well. So if you can deliver to an aspect of the client that you enjoy working with, and you do it well, boy, it pays huge dividends down the road.
Great advice, Dan. Dan, this has been a great conversation as always. It's been fun. Lots of good insight and tips to take away. So thank you. If listeners want to learn more about you or find out about your work, where do they go?
We have a website, www.danallenfinancial.com. And feel free to email us email me directly, dan@danallenfinancial.com, and be happy to answer any questions or give you a call back if you give me some contact information to have a conversation. In a business where I've said that we've got half an hour for everybody, I have no problems talking to other advisors about what we do.
Awesome. Dan, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
A fun conversation with Dan Allen. Here are my 3 key takeaways. Number 1, a client-centric approach. Dan emphasized the importance of putting clients' interests first. He discussed the value of understanding your client's values and priorities, which allows you to provide tailored financial advice and solutions. This client-centric approach helps build trust and long-term relationships. Number 2, adapting to change. Dan highlighted the need for financial advisors to adapt to changes in the industry. He mentioned the shift from load funds to fee-based models and how staying open to new approaches and learning from history is crucial for success. Number 3, the power of branding. Dan recognizes the value of branding and suggests that financial advisors should proactively market their services. He regrets not having promoted his brand earlier in his career and underscores the significance of delivering on promises as part of your brand identity. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Future Ready Advisor. Please be sure to subscribe to this podcast, and if you could rate it while you're at it, I would appreciate it. Visit samsivarajan.com, where you can download a behavioral coaching guide and find other resources. Join me in the next episode for more tips and tools to make your practice future ready.